discoveries for me, that there seemed to be good enough information out there suggesting the use of industrial pesticides and insecticides and fertilizers or artificial fertilizers basically stop the plants from uptaking boron from the soil and from the water or from the environment, which then causes basically in the populations that consume these foods osteoarthritis.
Yes, lack of boron.
Lack of boron.
Yeah. The technology team I'm working with right now is on this big campaign that the solution to so many things is borax.
Yes, exactly.
They're just talking about that all the time. And also certain hydrolysis physics now. The key is borax. It's like, it's cheap. You wouldn't believe the technologies that are based around boron right now.
Another one that gets bound up that's really interesting is phosphorus.
Yeah, phosphorus.
And glyphosate.
Yeah.
If you really understand what glyphosate is and what phosphorus really is, because the alchemists were the ones who discovered it by isolating it from the urine, and when they isolated it in the flasks, it glowed like a light, and they thought this surely was the philosopher's stone. So if you think of what glyphosate is doing to the phosphorus as it's bound up and turning off the light.
Yeah, turning off your fire, man.
Gets a real
Thanks,
insight
Monsanto.
on,
Yeah.
into what's going on.
Yeah, actually, and when we get to our ET history of DNA conversation, we're going to be talking about the Draco ancestors who used phosphorus for electron transport instead of iron in the blood. And what that difference was in terms of ensoulment in blood chemistry and implosion in the blood. It's all about phosphorus, actually. Phosphorus. And the red phosphorus versus white phosphorus, red versus white Draco, actually, which became the Order of the Red Shield of Rothschild. Yes, and when Enki first found the one big soul, they thought the white Draco was not clonable. But that's another story. We gotta different story, different day. Sorry.
So, did anybody ever measure the life force of the mosquito? I'm curious.
Thanks for getting us back. Well, you know, surface tension is a very big part of mosquitoes' life. And charge access through membrane is about surface tension. So that would be related. And the other thing is alkaline blood is much more resistant, not just to sting, but we heal faster afterward. And the difference between alkaline and acid blood is critical to everything we do. Everything.
Like to the plants as well, when you fertilize them and you have like a very high pH,
Yeah.
and they won't take it on, but when you lower the pH, then it's taking all the fertilizer away.
Yeah.
Better.
Thank you. Yes. So, and we have the whole bioelectronics of Vincent. We'll dig out the slides later, but most of you have seen. If you make a 3D graph, just visualize the picture. We dig it out, it takes long. Visualize the picture. pH, redox, and resistance. It's a three-dimensional graph. You plot that for blood, saliva, urine, whatever. And there's a certain area in that graph that if you're there, it's always cancer. Very simple. Just measure pH, redox, resistance, plants, people. If you're a certain part of that graph, that's called cancer. Because electron transport efficiency is related to alkalinity, actually. So acidity is the proton, that's the bullet, where the electron is the little fractal black hole. That's why negative ion wind is so magic. Negative ion wind is an introduction to what Theraphi does. Negative ion wind therapy, they first showed, you could dump spinal meningitis out of the fine, disinfect with it. But they were using very high voltage negative ion wind. This was Joyce in Scotland. We did a seminar there. And she's the one who came to me, she says, yep, I had to go out and get Egyptian cotton and get every bit of plastic and metal out of the room before this worked. She emphasized that to me. And it's the same thing. Negative ion is fragile, and the Theraphi plasma is fragile. And that fragility is charge distribution efficiency. Charge distribution efficiency is the fractality of high dielectric constant. Your aura can breathe in a wood house. In a metal house, you die and your seeds die. Because the capacitance isn't right. Okay, so we were going to conclude with some more of the science, but really, any more fun thoughts, conversations? It's okay, this is late in the day.
My question about the history of negentropy. So obviously people knew about, they didn't have the word probably for negentropy.
Yes.
But obviously they still died. So something didn't work. So how many sessions do you usually have on the Theraphi to get a becoming motor?
Oh, how many? I think I'm going to refer that question to Paul.
Yes, we're working on that number. It seems to be irrational right now.
I mean, you know, how many people today have come up to us and said, after the Theraphi session, I get faster pictures in my head. And it was Hannes. Hannes, are you here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
Hannes.
yeah.
Well, tell them what you were telling me about the pictures coming too fast.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I took a 3-minute session, then a 6-minute session. I said, I'll take another one. I'm so good. Take
Overdid it a
another
little
10
bit.
minutes, you know, and then I went home. And first I was in here, and it was like, wow, I had to go in and out because I felt like so charged up. It was like I'm almost exploding. So I went down to cool, and then I went home, and I went down, and there was a band playing, and I thought I could. I knew that the next song they were playing. And then I went home, you know, and I lay down, and then suddenly it was like this big whirl, you know, and then all these pictures were coming in, and I was getting even a bit paranoid because it started with very negative stuff, you know, and then I really sort of had to open my eyes and said, all the negative stuff, please go away, you know, and leave me alone and give me some positive stuff. But it took some time till I could get rid of it, but the world wouldn't go away. It would take quite some time. It was like really, really powerful. Each time I closed my eyes, it was so strong that I felt like everything was like spinning, you know.
Tornado got going a little bit too fast.
Yeah. And I thought it's nothing, but it's really something.
Yeah.
I got almost afraid. Yeah.
Yeah, and the solution is grounding, hydration, and don't overdo it. So tomorrow when Lydia gives us a little talk about hormesis, about a little bit is good in sacred space, but too much. Yes.
Question. You talked about gravity and longitudinal waves in Theraphi. A lot of people that we have come through Theraphi end up with very, very heavy sensation while they're in the field, particularly hands and arms and lots of times on the feet. Is that a gravity thing?
Well, I think what Paul's describing, it might be even simpler than that. As the body accretes more charge, you know, my mother used to say, he's not moving while the flavor lasts. You know, basically the charge density freezes you in the spot. So you get lots of charge rotating, you have lots of inertia. So I would talk about it first in terms of inertia, simply. Is your body becomes very, very charged. And your body cannot gather a lot more charge if you're moving. Stillness accretes a lot more charge than movement, except perfect geometric. Like if you move your finger in a perfect golden spiral, you should be able to feel it tingle at the fingertip. It's the physics of chi and grace. So it's a capacity, we call it a calculus of curvature. So there's certain kinds of movements which accrete capacitance, chi in yoga, for example. But in general, you accrete max capacitance from stillness. So there they are still, and they're being hugely charged. So their aura is building, and the aura has more inertia. So of course it's harder to move. It's a mutual process. As you get more still, and that's how Kundalini happens. That's how it happened to me. You learn how to get still longer and longer until there's a red hot poker going up your tailbone.
So is there any relation to why, particularly hands and feet? Is that
Well, yes.
something about us and our lifestyle?
Yeah, very much so. Like for somebody like me that's probably more stuck in the head. No. Whereas people who are active healers with their hands or working with their hands or feet all day, their discharge point is more likely to be. Makes total sense.
And this is why different people have different effects. And one of the experiments that we're talking about doing right now, because it could be that the central part of their bodies is getting lighter, so therefore the extremities feel heavier. When I get on a lot, I don't get any heavy parts at all. I feel lighter. I feel like I'm floating up off the table. So what we're talking about doing is taking 4 really accurate piezo weight measurements, so little mini scales that will fit underneath the 4 legs of the table and do very accurate weights as we have people on the table to measure that.
Cool.
You know how there was arguments for years among physicists because they made measures. There was publications. The body loses 6 to 8 ounces at the moment of death.
Right.
This was an argument they wanted for years and years. It actually was never resolved as an argument.
Yeah.
Because it's actually what I think it is people that have a really good aura, yeah. But people have not much aura, no. That's my opinion, actually.
Yeah, well, I wondered that too, if that was a statement about what the aura was.
I think it is, actually. And of course, physicists don't know what a soul is, so they couldn't ask that question.
Thank you.
Let's not pick on him, though. Yeah, please go ahead.
I have one quick question. I'm interested in the benefits, the positive and negative benefits of virtual reality.
Uh-huh.
For example, say this dodecahedron, if we could see that inside our head using virtual reality, like there could be a benefit to it. And the reason I'm asking is that the school in Chartres is saying that we're not just going online, they're all going virtual reality.
Oh, yeah, they want to go
And
virtual.
I'm concerned
Right.
that I'd rather teach sacred geometry on a tree, you know. But they're saying it has to all go digital and
Oh,
so I
right.
need some advice.
Yes, it's sort of like the moment when all the analog music turned digital, and they thought that was great, except it was harder to get soul in there.
Yeah.
And then they had to warm it up in the tubes again, like the Theraphi.
Yeah.
And the people who are teaching VR, their eyes are a little bit popped out of their head. I'm not saying it's negative, but,
That's great, Jay. You're so good. Yours are popped out of your head something. No, that's a really good question. It's like, would you like to be a Borg? And in Japan they would. No, let's not think of it. No, actually, the truth is that a strictly virtual reality, as it exists now, would be a much more difficult space in which to support the propagation of plasma. So actually, all these books about the soul in the computer do not know what a soul is. A soul is a plasma donut that's really spinning. That's what it is. And that ain't happening in these present virtual donuts, virtual reality things. No.
that was my intuition.
Yeah,
I felt
you know,
something wasn't right.
I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. That computer didn't have a soul. So all these people that are looking for the soul in the machine don't have a clue what a soul is. They're not going to find it, actually. So you're right. They need to do it under a tree. I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Yeah.
You can learn from the computer, but if you want the real bliss experience, being inside a silicon chip ain't going to cut it. No. And that all these kids with their iPhones, and when Steiner said correctly that if children under 7 and then under 14 spend too much time in front of passive visual devices, computer screens, they physically lose the ability to form an image inside their head. Do you know what that means? They cannot be God. That's what it means. Because if you're totally passive in front of all external image making, you cannot make I mage, I mag, I match, I merge with Agni, the fire, right? So in the Steiner school, the way they teach that is good physics. They say, okay, kids, and they get down there and they're taught to draw with extremely high resolution the stages of the opening of a rose. These are like 7-year-old kids, 8 years old. They draw it and make a very careful picture. Now they get the sequence of the staging of the opening of the rose. Okay, next step, children. Close your eyes and visualize those sequence of steps of the opening of the rose. Let's do it now. Can you make the image? Can you make the picture inside your head or not? Are you a creator or not? It's that simple. So if you can visualize this rose growing, are you doing it with me? Is the rose unfolding? Do you smell something? In the Steiner class, they always find out if the children accomplish this correctly by checking for the smell of roses. Even if it's not a rose for 1,000 miles. You know, it's really, they do, and it works. Do you know the physics of why? The flowering brain is the infrared generator, which is the physics of olfaction. This is Callahan's work. This is we're getting a little more esoteric here. But a wonderful lady lived with us in Marshfield, Massachusetts, Cape Cod, doing the Gurdjieff gymnastic. And she would be having these bliss experiences. And one day the windows are closed. The house is sealed up because it's cold outside. She's in there having these bliss experiences. First thing, on one side of the house, the cat is smashing against the window, demanding to get in the house because the lady's having a bliss experience. On the other side, there's this hummingbird smashing on the window repeatedly, demanding to get in the house, smells the bliss, right? This house was sealed up, double pane, absolutely sealed. How did that hummingbird smell that bliss, that rose? That's infrared. It went through the window. Callahan measured it. It's the flowering brain. So the point is that the skill to be able to make an image inside of what's outside, fractally, depends on that muscle, that you have to learn to use that muscle when you're young. If you're always passively inside out looking at a computer screen, unfortunately, you actually lose the muscle. Sorry, kids. Oops. Your doorway to creation is now closed. Checked out for this lifetime. Whoops. Now, Steiner people sometimes are accused of being Luddites, like they're afraid of computers. That's not good either. No. The computer's a wonderful tool, but parents need to understand the science. So if you're teaching active visualization to your child, which actually, if a proper use of a computer would be to teach a child to do 3D visualization, with the challenge being you must 3D animate what you just saw inside and make the image inside first. And actually, all those animations I just showed you that I made from equations? That was after my Kundalini.
So Theraphi could help reverse that.
Right.
Potentially, yeah, when they see the pictures. But when the pictures go too fast, so actually they need something on which to focus to keep the pictures, which means they need an intent, which means they need a purpose, which means they need a passion, which means they need to know what they want to do. So until they have an intent, I'm passionate about motorcycles, right? Whatever, flowers, whatever it is, but you got to know what that passion is to focus. Otherwise, that tornado has no center, no emotional ground. So,
They don't call the operating system Android for nothing. And this is a big question that brings up, and this is a critical turning point in our history that we have to come to a consensus or to somewhat of alignment and agreement on where we want to go. Because that's the biggest point, is artificial intelligence is exactly that. It's an intelligence, in a sense, that's artificial without the soul. So it's not capable of making a conscious decision. Unless the programmer of the artificial intelligence has used morals and ethics, and this is where philosophers are going to get employed once again, because we are reaching this time where we have to make these decisions on how we use this artificial intelligence and who's we give the power and control to behind it. So it's one of my important parts of my talks that I make, and we did a lecture for first-year engineering students at the university, and I said, when you guys go into your jobs, when you graduate, this is going to become a really important part. And for a lot of the children that are growing up right now in elementary school, well, 60 to 80% of the jobs that they're going to work in haven't even been thought of yet. They're just not even there. And so this is where we're heading, and we really have to make conscious decisions in moving into this.
Yeah, to be aware of intent, and that even children develop a yearning. Actually, in Sufis call it "from length is longing born," or "charge the battery of yearning," which at first sounds like the opposite of the Buddha, who said eliminate desire. What the Sufis mean by yearning for the divine, what they mean by "from length is longing born," is the fact that the illusion of separateness is necessary to experience so you can generate the yearning then for oneness. And so actually we needed to experience the pain of feeling separate before we could even generate the necessary yearning to fuse again. So we can apologize for the journey. So let's see if we can finish just a little bit of science curriculum, since that was what was announced for the segment, which was summary of the science and then summaries of the technologies. And but these conversations are so useful, and we want to have more of them during this seminar. And your voice is very important. We're looking forward to Carlos's report, Lydia's report. Other people have been using the Theraphi a lot, Peter, Kati, whoever wants to. So we're going to have some more sharing. But let's just see if we can. We had a little curriculum in mind for today, so this was the announced curriculum. So the summary of the science of origin of biological negentropy, which is based in my book. There's a website. The technology site summary is implosiongroup.com. Well, there we go. Did I skip 2 slots? I did. Casualty. So this is 4-wave mixing, how phase conjugate works, how pine cones kiss noses. Notice the distance between the layers of the pine cone are golden ratio, and that's implosive collapse. And if you take the hex view of that same cube, notice that that's the pairs of primary colors. Exactly. We're going to actually apply that to the physics of the reason color exists, but we'll do that in a bit. So that negentropy, this is a review, we prove phase conjugate, that golden ratio perfects wave interference. There's a link I mentioned, extensive proof by is exponents of Planck in time predicts, so this equation. So this is, I suppose, if I can afford it, I might put this on my gravestone.
want to simplify it.
So, Planck length or time times integer powers of golden ratio called phase conjugation. Exactly this line. The cause of gravity, all negentropy, perception, life force, the cause of perception, cause of color, the cause of all centripetal forces, perfected in closing. That equation predicts virtually exquisitely exactly 3 exact radii of hydrogen, the exact wavelength of the sign di-phi ATP ATP, which is the motor of all cell metabolism. It's the exact only 2 frequencies of light which make photosynthesis go. Phase conjugate negentropy charge collapse. It is exactly the British foot, and we'll see the harmonics of all sacred units of measurement. It's exactly almost the Schumann harmonic cascade, exactly the brainwave sequence of bliss. It's exactly the harmonic series of Theraphi, priori. It is exactly the LF 0.1 hertz, actually 0.0959, which is called the Mayer wave, which Patrick's going to tell you lots and lots about. The most important resonance frequency of the blood and the spine of the body, which is the same as the LF, the HRV. It is the exact duration of the Earth year and the Venus year, the precession and the galactic year. Negentropy, right? If you want to emerge from chaos, if you ain't on this line, you ain't doing it, right? So this is the physics of non-destructive charge collapse, and here's the proof. This is a detailed slide. These are the only 2 wavelengths that allow photosynthesis to happen. Exact Planck length times 136 and 137 powers of phi. Exactly. And if you go to a different halfway between, you get a frequency called the color green that prevents life and prevents photosynthesis. It's the reason why every living plant you look at looks green, because that's the only photon that can't implode and can't be part of life. That's why plants are green. Did you know?
That's the color that Theo Gimbel was using to treat cancer.
Well, they call it negative green, and there's lots
Yeah,
of arguments about. There's lots of arguments about it. What's his name in Egypt saying how negative green can kill you, and he's right. So this is some of the more details. Here's the Venus year, the Earth year, photosynthesis, gravity. So this is just review. You guys have all seen this, but since this was the seminar, we thought there's the Planck length and the actual numbers filled in. So here's the fun part. So again, the frequencies the equation predicts, which we later used to build Theraphi, because we discovered priori had, even though he didn't know why. And here are the exact known, accurate, measured frequencies of the Schumann harmonics, and Greg Radin did not get it right. But these are the real Schumann harmonics, and look how close they are. Okay? And these are the harmonics you need to teach in brain waves to make bliss. Do you see a connection? So here's the alpha waves, the centerpiece of all our work on brain waves on the last day with Patrick here. Here's the, in this case it's about 8.5 hertz, is actually about 8 in the Schumann. So there's no coincidence that not only was alpha, beta, theta, delta in brain waves originally defined by golden ratio from here to here, but it's no coincidence that these harmonics in the brain waves are the Schumann harmonics. Why? Perfect embedding, implosive charge collapse. The Earth is my body. Right? So that's the implosive science of embedding. It's actually the physics of compacting. As above, so below, inside, so without, I am that I am. See, what happens is that I'm supposed to be learning how to use this new touchpad, and I got too lazy to learn how to use it. So,
Question.
Yeah.
Have you tried observing the difference of this cascading harmonic reality on naturally born people versus C-section?
Interesting. I mean, the question you're essentially saying is, if you had cesarean, are you more likely, you're less likely to have bliss? That's your question.
Yes.
It's a beautiful question. It's similar to the question of, is autism really correlated to artificial insemination? You know, if you can't really make the bond. And that, for example, is autism correlated to artificial insemination? That's a study that is almost illegal. Nobody would touch it with a 10-foot pole. Nobody would want to do that study. Oops. So similarly, about, you know, a birth canal and, what did you say about?
C-section
Yeah, that's
babies
right.
versus
Yeah, C-section,
natural born
yeah.
babies'
And-
capacity to.
And I'm sure if you go to the rebirthing literature, I've taught in some rebirthing centers, I'm sure if we go to the rebirthing center, somebody's done that study. Because the rebirthing people are all over that. They know that's all the problems C-section cause. It's an encyclopedia of problems caused by C-section. It's true. And even though women have evolved not to have a birth canal, but that is a bit of a soulless path. So here is the slide. These are this is what we will be doing with Patrick on Monday. I keep talking about you, Patrick, is that okay? Okay. So Patrick is the one who taught me about some of this, who taught me about the Mayer wave. But look, here is that part of that cascade directly from my equation. So my equation is in red, okay, these peaks here. And here is the sacrocranial harmonics, which are the motor of Kundalini and bliss. The spine liquid pump frequencies are called the titles. The absolute physics of Kundalini for sure, and Upledger proved, if your spine liquid is pumping, it is clinically impossible to be depressed. Did somebody talk about a solution to depression? Low frequency, as we put low frequency in Theraphi. Well, so look, this is the spine liquid pump frequency, and this is the most important frequency in all of the blood from Patrick, 0.1 hertz, or 0.095. It's called the Mayer wave, LF, etc. Look at that cascade. Isn't that beautiful? And here, this is the LF frequency and the HF center. Guess what? Right on the equation. The most important frequencies in heart rate variability, the most important subject in all of medicine, the most published, HRV, heart rate variability. And now next, maybe we get to work. We apply that to adenosine diphosphate. This is just to display the equation here. Here is the primary bond length of the most important bond length in all of cell metabolism, ADP, ATP. Here's that bond length, 1.9 angstroms, right out of the equation. You see? So the cell metabolism, that's the blue fire. That's the real sex juice. And we said we'd dig out this slide, so we did dig out the slide. The Nature magazine says the universe is a dodeca, and New Scientist says the universe is fractal. Who's right? They're both right. Okay. So we've been there. And somebody referred to the dodeca ratchet, the dodeca dance. Actually, if you search dodeca dance on Google, you will find music that was inspired by me.
Yeah.
So this is the dodeca dance. And you see how you braid the braid on the braid. Here's the hydrogen bond. Look, hydrogen bond in the DNA, it's the center right here. This is one rung of the ladder of DNA. Here's the hydrogen bond. And what are the radii of hydrogen? That's the center of the spark gap. That's the zipper. Where's the soul? Where's the lightning? So this is called braid on braid. It recursively 7 times. And then the DNA turns inside out. And it's bliss. Literally, the phonon geometry of bliss that makes this happen, and we've measured it. EKG coherence, Glenn Ryan, I inspired research. And here's the DNA turning inside out. It's actually a photomicrograph. DNA is a donut. These slides are old. You guys have seen them. Okay, but at the end, this is something maybe you may not have seen.
No, we can't see it.
Sorry. So, I like it that I wrote a phase conjugate model of perception before I met Steve Lehar, who wrote a paper called Gestalt Theory of Perception Based on Phase Conjugation. I liked it. So basically he's saying that the way you determine figure from ground, that he calls it the ability to rapidly locate boundary conditions. The way basically the mechanism of the way you focus is exactly like a phase conjugate mirror. And these are his drawings. This is his drawing of phase conjugation in perception. Does that look familiar? So, yeah. So you know what it's called? They call it the reverse grass fire algorithm. That you're focused in the middle, but you're aware of the boundary conditions because of a reverse grass fire, which is converging, and they call it flame fronts. Flaming them on. So the flame bounces back to center, and if the flame bounces back to center recursively in phase conjugation, then you can be aware of the boundary at the same time you're aware of the center. Oh, did I feel that whole room as if it was my body. This is reverse grass fire, the physics of the phase conjugate model of perception called flame fronts in the literature. So the physics of perception, how you create the possibility, which basically means simple. Your plasma aura has to embed. That's why if you look at nature, your eyesight gets sharper. I did the whole Philippine psychic surgeon wants to lose my glasses. And I operated without glasses for some time. And when I was in nature, you could see sharp, but driving at night, the point is, if you're looking at a phase conjugate structure, what you're looking at has centripetal charge, so your vision naturally gets sharper. However, if you're looking at a synthetic item, your vision actually naturally gets duller because you can't implode as much. It's part of why the Steiner people teach correctly that the child should never touch plastic, synthetic, or metal. The child should never even touch it. The child should only touch natural fabric, natural fiber, wood, and natural stone. Because these are items into which your aura can unpack. And so these can become part of your body, literally. That creates perception. Another useful way of thinking about the phase conjugate model of perception, here's a practical application for you. Well documented in the literature, you take the poisonous fluorescent lights out of your children's classroom and install sunlight. I've told this story many times. You can measure a dramatic increase in attention span. Well documented. John Ott, Health and Light, other books. You want to understand the physics of that, don't you? Why does it repair the ability to have attention by installing sunlight instead of poisonous fluorescent light, which is opposite to the right spectrum? Well, now let's see. What about the spectra from Theraphi? What did Paul say? 30% of the people who come out of the Theraphi say, my vision is sharper. Why did Patrick Malone in Western Canada say, I don't need my glasses anymore? From the Theraphi. So anything that creates implosion creates perception because that's what defines perception. So this hopefully is the end of our technical section. Yes, there. So I have a slideshow here which is examples of us using this technology, Purify, Icosify, and then we have our energy technologies. But it's late and it's hot. And I think we're tired, actually. I think we deserve a break. We had a great day. I think a break before dinner is good, don't you? We'll have lots of time tomorrow. Yeah. I think a break before dinner is good. So really, thank you very much. A couple little practical notices here. One is the management is suggesting that if you really want to use the pool, it's preferred if you use the pool in your own hotel. But if you do want to use this one, kind of check with the management. Because if the other guests are converging, those are friendly